Hello and welcome to Intuitive Clarifications with Natasha. Regan Forston is here as he is most every month at this time in our life here. And I'm hoping that everybody is good, everybody's doing well. I know that right now life is very much up and down, in and
Oh
out.
yeah.
And I just had a conversation with somebody who is dear. To me, and that is losing the man that she thought she was going to get married to, has disappeared. And I can say that honestly, within reason, because she already put it on air somewhere else. And then Regan has been helping her through that. And then I've had a cat and a dog disappeared. The dog was today. So hopefully praying that in one dimension, one reality, that they all come back. The pet distribution system is out and about. So we're just going to walk with it. So today's show is going to be about how is life mirroring for you to learn your experiences. And we're going to talk about some skills to get through it. And obviously, I'm in the middle of one right now. So I'm taking some observations about why this is happening. And that's the key to this. And is to ask the question, why is this happening? Because sometimes we don't know why things happen until later. But, that's the thing is that, things are happening left and right for us right now to negotiate. And, it's one of those things. And, we're all where we're supposed to be. We're all going through what we're supposed to. And, I understand that, and I'm sorry, Regan, but, I'm going to babble here for a few minutes, for a few
Go
seconds.
ahead. Go ahead and
But,
babble.
it's like right now that, it doesn't matter what dimension, what reality you want, you're still going to have life happening to you because we're going to still be human in the experience. And so, like for me, I'm really thinking I'm out of scarcity, I'm out of this. But then, like my partner, lovingly said, is still dancing in that story. And so it floats into my reality in my world. And so we're all in the midst of this, why are we going through something? And sometimes it's to find boundaries. Sometimes it's to find inner strength. Sometimes it's to find the trust, surrender, and acceptance until you know more. Sometimes it's all, it's a sometimes. So Regan, thank you for being here. And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for your wisdom that always
Yeah.
comes
I
along
love
for
this
the
time
ride
when
here.
we get a chat, and it's so appropriate right now because for so many of my clients, I mean, even today, I tell you a few stories of some clients I talked to today. I was on Coast to Coast a few nights ago, so people trying to reach me, and some people desperately. I mean, with the email, and I just wake up and they've tried 4 or 5 times, and they say, I'm suicidal, I need some help, whatever, and it's all about they just feel that the rug has been pulled out from under them in every part of their life right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I have this story the one gentleman had. He was actually suicidal earlier today, and so he was the first person I called, and we talked for about an hour and a half, and he's doing better now. He's doing better because I just had to calm him down, tell him, look, I've dealt with many people, same thing as him, but they just have to hang in there and they're going to get through. It's going to be okay. And he
Mm-hmm.
had to hear that, because he feels like he can't go any further. And talking. Let's for a minute. Let's talk about this pets thing, because that woman that you talked to earlier too, that's having these issues with her fiance disappearing. Well, her cats disappeared too. Your cats
Mm-hmm.
have disappeared. The other call I was on for an hour today, he just lost his dog, which was his whole life. And he showed me pics. He sent me pictures. Oh, what a sweetie! This has such soulful eyes. This little dog,
Mm-hmm.
and the dog just, you know. So he's got all kind of questions. If I done anything wrong, did I not bring him up right?
No, and
What?
that's the thing is, no, we're
Yeah,
doing great.
yeah. I mean, he loved that dog. I'm sure he did the best he could. But when someone passes, you always think, oh, is part of that my fault? Could I've done some? If I'd done something different, would they still be here? Well, on the other side, as we both know, dogs are souls just like us. When I, in my, just to give you a little background, people, I know we have a lot of listeners. They've heard this over and over again. I love when they listen in. But I work with the Newton Institute. We have a way of getting people in a deep state of relaxation. They actually go to the other side and back. They spend a couple hours in the afterlife and come back. And one of the things when they're over there that I orchestrate is for them to talk to pets that have passed on, but
Mm-hmm.
also to the higher selves of the souls of the pets that are in their lives now. and they're able to talk to their pets and say, hey, how am I doing? Is there anything you need? Like, remember last time I mentioned my client who has 2 dogs, and so she's having a conversation with one of her dogs, and the dogs kind of looks at her, kind of says, you know what, you're giving him too much lap time and not enough me. I need more lap time. And she just laughed, and she goes, oh boy, that's so true. So when she came back from that, she started equally treating them, more equally, and that really helped her relationship with her dogs. So whatever's going on in the universe right now, animals sometimes are the first ones where, when changes are happening, shows up in the animals. Like before earthquakes, before different things, birds, things like this, they seem to be more sensitive to frequency change than
They
us
are.
humans.
They are. Mm-hmm.
So let's hope it's with your cats, and with her cats, and everything that's going on. Let's hope that they're maybe they're just giving us a warning, saying, people, be aware that there's a lot of change going on right now, and don't worry, but it's coming. Maybe it's a little advance of a tsunami of emotions or something coming. So I wonder
Exactly.
if anybody out there that's listening right now, if you're going through something, share, just type in on where you're at now, let us know what's going on. Maybe we can give you some insight to that.
Exactly.
So,
And hi, Paula and Veronica. Thank you for being
oh,
here, and
Paul and
anybody else
Veronica,
who's watching.
yay.
And Paula, I want to say that, I emailed or I texted you in a moment of vulnerability, and I'm so grateful for your kind words. She texted me. I texted her right after I got back from looking for Cleo and our dog, and it was like, it's just a vulnerable moment, because right now my intuition is tapping into the person who I was talking to, but can I find my dog?
Right. Isn't
I get a
that,
sense of
yeah,
where she's been,
yeah,
but not where she is. And same with my dog, with my cat. I get a sense of where he is, but not, or where he's been, but not where he is. And
yeah.
with other people, I'm tapping in everywhere. But even Sylvia Brown said that it was hard to read herself.
I
You
know.
know,
I wonder why that's so hard when we can help so many people, but when we kind of look at ourselves, it's not as easy as it is with other people. It must be just somehow the way things are supposed to work. Maybe it's so that we reach out to somebody else to help us.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like, just like yourself, I've had, oh gosh, quite a number of mediums, psychics and stuff that I've done sessions for. And it's helped them to clarify some things that they couldn't see, but then they go, oh, that's why, kind of thing.
Well, when
You
you're
know,
when you're too close to the situation, like for me right now,
yeah.
I know part of the reason why I'm not able to is because of my emotions. My emotions are cloaking a little bit of what's going on. There's been other things that have been happening you
Yeah.
know, because I'm personally in my second Saturn return. My husband's in his second Saturn return. So that means that, like, my first Saturn return was the years that my parents were passing away. I was having kids, and I sold 3 houses and bought one. It's like things were happening, and right now too, there's a planet that's involved, and I forget what it is, but it's going back over what happened 30 years ago and what has happened in our life 30 years ago. And 30 years ago was when my parents were passing away, and we were moving into
Mm-hmm.
this house, and things were happening. And so, and there's a lot of healing that needs to go on in those stories, because I even talked with my husband about maybe some of the stuff that we're going through is some of that, understand. And this is how life is mirroring for you, that you can kind of look at
Mm-hmm.
as why. And I was kind of observing, well, maybe that's why he's kind of feeling like I'm not loving him as much, or I'm not showing him as much, or
Mm-hmm.
because we just had a wedding, we just had family come in, we had the discussion, that, and I'm being a little vulnerable here because he's such a wonderful man, but we all go through emotions. And,
Yeah.
sometimes when we all, when we're feeling like we're not paid attention to, we get kind of a little bit on the angst side. And, so
Yeah.
we've even had those conversations. But maybe that's why he's feeling a little bit more, because when, I was in depression, we were buying houses and selling houses, and I had little ones. And I mean, it was like I couldn't pay
Mm.
attention to anybody. And at the same time, his alcoholism was pretty strong at that time. You know how alcoholism goes through its
Yeah.
waves, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
was a strong wave moment because of probably not feeling compassion and love from me. And, it's one of those things. So going into this, that, we have these times where things are going back over so that we can look over them to heal. And that's why life is mirroring so much for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think we each person has a like a quotient of love that they feel that they need to be okay. And when that quotient isn't there or they don't feel it, as human beings, we kind of flail, like, because we feel like we're not centered. And so a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times that ends up in us doing things to numb down those feelings so we don't have to feel that way. And mistakenly so, like alcohol, drugs, and that sort of thing, they seem to give us a slight temporary relief. We're not having to think that. But then as that wears off, the feelings come back. I mean, I think that's what happens with a lot of addictions. So, what we need to learn to do is mature adults, is when we're feeling that our quotient of love is, we have a big piece here that's missing, is we need to find good ways of filling that void. And
Mm-hmm.
when I'm dealing with people that are that way, one thing they seem to find that helps is I get them to volunteer for something in the community to help people, or to go out and do something, or go out, take $100 and go out and start handing $5 bills to the homeless or something. In other words, because as you give out love that way, somehow that giving that comes back to you in
And
some
fills up
way.
your bucket a
It
little bit. And that's
fills
why
up
I
your,
do what I do. That's why I do
yeah,
what I do, because it's part of my filling up the bucket. People always say, "Aren't you tired after doing 3 sessions?" And I'm like, going 4 sessions at a fair. No, actually this fills up my bucket. And
yeah,
I know that the universe is filling in, a little bit for him too, because he had somebody who came up and wanted him to be his sponsor. And so now they're going through the steps, the 12
okay,
stages of, and I'm not going to talk much more about him, because
yeah.
it's
Well,
like
good,
it's
good for
his
him
life.
for,
But
yeah,
it's like it's one of those things that, but I want to tell people, I want people to know that as I talk about these things, that this is how you do find how life is mirroring for you.
yeah,
What is it? And maybe Cleo disappearing needed to show Rick that he needed to find surrender, trust, and acceptance in a
yeah,
deeper level than he's ever seen before, because that's part of his double Leo Libra is about control, about,
yeah,
wanting to be, he's even talked about that. Well, I do like to be in control. I like to be right. I like to be all of these things that, are part of his story, because of the way that vulnerability is not a strength all the time for a lot of men,
yeah,
and I think a lot of men are starting to learn how to be in that moment. And I
yeah.
and
And
I send so much love to him, because he's such a strong man. He's such a good man. He's such an amazing being, that he's just, we're all trying, like me, I'm finding my emotions are being triggered more than they usually are. And
hmm
it's taken all my tools to get through what I'm going through. Right. But I'm doing better than I thought I would.
Well, isn't it interesting too, as you watch other people going through their dark night of soul, or when they're having things like this, on how we're in it too. We're in that. We get into that too. So there's something there for us to learn or to do. And sometimes it's just to take care of the other person, or to be able to just sit with them and listen to them. And sometimes maybe help them find solutions. Sometimes just to listen is what. But here's one thing I found that's good too. That hole, that's where that emptiness is, sometimes people don't realize that they can fill up that hole too by, if they can't volunteer somewhere, do something for others, is they can be the person that they do something for.
Hmm.
So if you pretend you're standing beside yourself, you're looking at your life like it's a client or a good friend, and you can say, oh, what does that person, I can see what that person needs. Wow, he he's working too hard. He needs to take time and walk in nature for a while, or he needs time to take time to meditate, or to look in the mirror. Like, this thing we always say, look, he needs time to take time in the mirror and look at that person in the mirror,
And
um,
appreciate
and
and
appreciate
appreciate
him.
for everything that
Yeah.
they've been doing.
And say, look, you mess up sometimes. So what? You're perfectly imperfect. You're doing good. You're going to get through this, and I'm going to help you, as
Hmm.
you're looking at yourself. So
Wrap
sometimes,
your arm around that person and say, "Let's go.
yeah,
We've got this."
increase your self-love,
Hmm.
because if you're not getting from others, you can give the love to yourself. And, I'm surprised because I was that way too. It was like, we always feel selfish somehow if we take care of ourselves. Like we should always be given to others, but no. Um, when I've had people on the other side and they have health issues, they're going through a lot of stuff. One of the main things the angels, the guides say, and you've probably found this too, that they tell the client is, "Hey, man, you're lacking some self-love there. You need to get
Hmm.
with it. You need to realize that you're a perfectly imperfect soul, human being going through experience. You need to not be so hard on yourself. You find yourself down in the mud. You need to just kind of stand up, kind of brush it off, get back on the wagon, start moving forward. And once people do, I know for me, when I started this self-love kind of thing, oh my God, I mean, I'm just, hmm. It even
And
gets me now. Look at that. It's
yeah,
like,
exactly. But that's
yeah,
that whole piece, though. And this is the one thing that life is mirroring for us a lot of times is how are we taking care of us? And I call that a healthy eye. I call
yeah,
that a very healthy eye because sometimes we can be in the unhealthy eye, which is like, well, I don't want to do that for you, and I don't want to do this for you, and that kind of thing. But it's that healthy eye moment where we can really, sit back and say, like for me, after looking for Cleo, I came back and I took a shower and, because it's almost 90 degrees here, and so,
yeah,
took a shower after getting really hot and cooled down. And I sat down and I played a video game on my phone, because it was like it was time for me to kind of take a moment for myself and integrate,
hmm,
and video games on my phone are, I'm trying to break myself of that habit, but there's sometimes where I use them for integration. I use them for a time for my brain to process through being the brain that I have, and so going into this, but that is, take care of you. Sometimes we have to appreciate who we are and appreciate what we're doing and be proud of how far we come, like for me,
yeah,
I had family come in because we had a family wedding. My stepson was getting married, and so we had family coming in from Florida. And so, and my youngest came in, and so on Wednesday they came in, and then on Friday we drove 7 hours to the other side of the state,
wow,
and then was at the wedding for 24, 48 hours, and then drove back, and then we were here for 24 hours, and then everybody left except for my mother-in-law stayed. Well, while she was here, Rocky ended up leaving, and then 2 days
mm,
later she ended up leaving. And my mother-in-law, I love my mother-in-law. She stepped in to be my mom when my mom passed away. And it's like I told Rick that I'm so proud of myself that I haven't broken down and wailed,
yeah,
and it would have been okay if I did, but I knew that, and I've known this about myself, and this is one thing that I do know about myself is that I do let my emotions speak. I do want my emotions to speak. I want to. Oh, I think his phone overheated. Maybe. Oh, there you are. There you are. Did
I don't know
your
what happened there. No, I don't have. If I had the sun, if it was coming through my windshield on the phone, it would close off after a while. But it's nice and cool here and everything. So
Okay, so I want to make
I
sure
don't
your
know.
phone wasn't hot, but
Yeah,
that's
thank
okay.
you.
We're okay.
Yeah,
So
so you're just saying
going
all
into
these.
this, yeah,
Yeah.
and but you have to let your emotions speak. But I know me enough that if I was to really, tap into where I'm at instead of riding on it, when those emotions come up, I let my tears
Hmm.
come down. I speak it. I go out and I call for Rocky. I go out and call for Cleo. It's like I do these things, but at the same time, I know that I can't sink into the rabbit hole because
Hmm.
then I'm not going to be good and I won't be persevering through what I need to persevere through right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes too, when people go to weddings and they can kind of feel the love in the air, and they see all this, and it brings back memories of when they felt that high, that way, and I hope when I'm parked in a place. Oh, okay, I'm okay, I think. Anyway, and so sometimes makes them be very or conscious of where they're at, and I think sometimes they go, "Oh, I kind of long to feel that way again." And
Hmm.
sometimes that's a good thing because it makes them be introspective, and then if they start working on the relationship or something a little bit, they can kind of peel back to another layer and go deeper into that relationship, and to kind of get that. It doesn't have to be exactly the romantic thing, but the connection.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. And it's
to
about the hug. It's about that moment where, and it's about hugging ourselves. But
yeah,
so, those that are watching right now, can you maybe ask a question about what you're going through, and maybe we can kind of give you an idea how life is mirroring something for you.
yeah.
Because I know, Regan, you were saying that life is going pretty good for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going great, but it's funny, but I'm still around all of that same energy as if it was happening to me, because my clients are experiencing it all. So in a sense, I'm in their bubble too,
Mm-hmm.
that way. So I have to, watch my emotions and stuff, and it makes me introspective in me, and it's like, oh wow, how can I make my relationships better? How can I get through things? And it's teaching me by watching them go through transformation. It helps me when I get in the same situation as them, being human too. And I realize, wow, my clients got through it. It's almost like a reverse thing where they got through it. Why can't I get through it?
Yeah.
Kind of thing that way. One thing I wanted to mention, even for, I'm coming from both of us here, maybe speaking for both of us, but I was noticing that the relationship that we build with our clients sometimes, this whole thing, we think, well, we're the therapist and we're the ones that know all this stuff and we're helping people, but this is a two-way street here. And the relationship I've built with some of my clients and everything, I found out just like my clients are doing therapy for me. I don't know how to quite explain that, but it's like a mutual growth,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of happens. And I feel privileged right now that I'm in this, that God's put me in this position, because I know with each person that I'm in a thing to try to help them solve problems, at the same time, something's solving something in me, you know.
Well,
So,
and that's that whole collective, there's synchronistic, there's
yeah,
this moment, and that's the thing is that, things come into our life to support us and show us that we are still human, wanting to level up on our learning process, right? And
yeah,
so that's why things happen for us and to us, to help us level up on our emotions and our story, so that we can get stronger. Because I know for me that with Rocky leaving, I'm a little bit more stronger having Cleo being gone. I'm more
mm,
sad for my husband because she was more my husband's dog, right? She was more my husband's familiar type of thing. And so going into this, that, you know, it's that whole emotion story. And, you know, that's why things but I know for me that when I have sessions and when I have things happening, that there's many times they're patting me on the head.
yeah,
This is for you too, my dear. And I go, oh, thank you very much, because it is helping. Now I may let it slide through, but then it will come back through life's journey, like we were talking about, the stages of alcohol, the 12 stages that you go through when you are going through AA. And, and I was saying that there's sometimes when they're reading and then I'm going, well, I'm going through that one right now. I don't
hmm,
even have to be an alcoholic to be able to go through the stages, of why is this,
yeah,
how can I make amends? How can I, find my path closer to the one I believe in, all those different
yeah,
things. And many times the things that are happening to us, for us, are to strengthen our understanding of our will,
hmm,
because we are strong. And think, as I'm doing this, I'm popping into other lifetimes where, sometimes we were put on racks and stretched, well,
oh
why did
boy,
that happen? Why did that happen? Well, that was part of the time in that lifetime. And it wasn't necessarily to help us be stronger, but it was like, because that was the moment maybe our soul needed to leave that body,
yeah,
you know and what did we persevere through, knowing that those emotions were here. And because a lot of times it was other people's judgments, it was other people's stories that were causing us to go through pain, and that's still the same way, in a way. It's like,
hmm,
I know that things haven't been easy for Cleo because her dad's been a little bit more upset lately, and so maybe she needed to leave because he's been a
Yeah.
little bit more upset, and she needed to distract herself for some reason.
Oh, yeah. So many stories about um, with people that are depressed or cancer or something, and they find out how their pets become more attentive to them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come up and hug them. They'll come up and snuggle with them even more. Because I think they can they can feel that shift when when our frequency's off, and they know it's their job to kind of come up and kind of give us some of their frequency to kind of balance
Mm-hmm.
us back out. Pets are, since I've been doing this work, I've just had so much more understanding of how kind and loving and everything pets are. I had one person who was on the other side, and they were talking to the pets, and I don't know if it was the pet or the guide or something that says, well, over here, a lot of times animals, they're at a slightly different higher vibration than human beings because they've already learned unconditional love, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and something they're trying to teach us. And it made me go, that's really right. You know, that's what I think we always love about our pets is no matter how dysfunctional we are, there they are for us. You know, there they are, just being our friend.
Unconditional love. And that's the thing is
Yeah.
that, I've had many, because I do animal communication and I do talk with my animals, but sometimes
Hmm.
being intuitive when you're pretty close to something, sometimes it's hard to see everything, but
Hmm.
I do talk with my animals, and I've done some animal communication, like with on Martha Norwalk's Animal World, and there's a lot of times it comes out of my mouth, like if the dog is having liver problems or something, and I go, how are you processing your emotions? You know,
Yeah.
I'm not doing very well. Well, because it's that, you know, animals will go through something to mirror for us what we need to look at, and what do we need to see, and what do we are, it's like we take more better care of our animals, but the animals say it will take care of you just as equally.
Yeah. Now, here's something you just reminded me of. So sometimes when people are having deep emotional stuff, aren't you saying that somehow in the body, it's the kidneys that get the damage or the kidneys that get weak sometimes or bad?
Well,
Does it
the
have to do
liver
with
and the
emotions?
gallbladder is about emotions. They
Okay.
represent emotions. And when we're processing something, the
Okay.
liver is the first processor. The liver is part of, and the kidney and this and the gallbladder. That's why there's so many people who have gallbladders out, because they've just gone through so much
Yeah.
emotional baggage. And sometimes it's not about what we're going through right now, but the body processes things like what I'm going through right now. I'm going to want to be careful, like about September, October. That's when I'm going to know my body is probably processing a lot what I'm going through right now. And so going into this, like for me, when I was going through the years of my parents passing away, and my adrenals were basically, saying I'm done being in fear and flight. My nervous system was a wreck and everything like that. That because my body basically stopped producing hormones. That as we were, I could tell that the domino effect of all that was, so about maybe 2-3 years after my parents and all that story went away, is when my body said, me now, me now. And that's actually after my mom passed away. I went through a year of getting massages and craniosacral work done. So I was doing a lot of stuff. But the difference for me doing that saved me, I think, from having my body not want to be here.
Yeah.
I could
Hmm.
have gone down the path of cancers and all that kind of stuff, but it chose to do the hormone dance and the adrenals and the thyroid, and my liver numbers were really high too. And so going into this,
Way up.
yeah, so going into this, that I was able to do that healing work. My body chose to stay here. It didn't choose, but it chose something to help me learn self-love. Remember, I'm connected with my body. Remember that my body is the one that's going through the stress. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is that there's a lot of health issues. So if you're having a knee problem or a kidney problem or lung problem, look up what it represents. Google,
Yeah.
what does this body part represent in spirituality? And you may find that it's like, the lungs. Am I breathing? Am I breathing my life in? Am I being able to speak my
Mhm.
truth? Am I being able to express myself fully, or am I stuffing myself down? That's also the voice. So it's like if you start getting, throat issues, but that tickle in the
Yeah.
throat is the throat. But the lungs, this upper lung is part of that upper chakra,
Yeah.
the throat chakra. And so how do you express yourself, or are you expressing yourself?
And you have a book too of someone that's kind of figured that out, right? Can you
Mm-hmm.
show that to people? Maybe they can look it up. And I'll tell you another book that's out now too.
So it's Ina
Secret
Siegel's,
Language of Your Body.
the Secret of the Language Body.
Anna
Um,
Siegel. Okay.
yeah, and then also Louise Hayes had a book, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of good intuitive mediums out there that do this. This is a book that came to me probably about
Yeah.
10 years ago, 15 years ago, and but I love the intention that she has with it, and she does she's and like uh, Louise Hayes has a prayer around it, and I like the
Yeah.
way that she words a lot of her prayers because she uses color. She uses a lot of different things where I don't think
Hmm.
Louise Hayes did as much.
And yeah, there's a new book out now by Julia Cannon, Cannon. She's the daughter of Dolores Cannon, who did a
Mhm.
lot of afterlife research. And she just published it last year. I don't know the name, but if people Google Julia Cannon, Cannon books, it'll come up. And I know she was on Coast to Coast just after you were on Coast to Coast, about a month later. And so, here's what I'm thinking too, because I have this monocore, this healing machine that heals through frequencies.
Mhm.
And somehow I was led to get that. And now I have 3 clients that have supposedly incurable diseases. And I'm trying to put them on this healing machine. And so far, it's looking pretty good. Too early to tell yet, but so far, it's kind of good. So you just gave me the idea. Say someone comes to me and they're got these emotional, really highly emotional issues, and I'm getting them into hypnosis, either to take them to the afterlife or just try to talk to subconscious. I could hook them up to the machine and clean their kidneys or their
Mhm.
gallbladder at the same time. You know, so maybe I can kind of combine the two things and be more helpful to them. But
But
also,
also to remember though that the body, when it's processing through something,
yeah,
at any point in time, like my chiropractor, I told him that today or yesterday when I went and saw him that he really adjusted my body the time before I saw him, and I was out from bottom to top. And then he used there's a vibrator that he used, and it's frequencied into moving things through. Well, what had ended up happening was, that, him adjusting me and then doing the massage threw me over to where
mm,
I really hurt for probably 36 hours after the adjustment, which is not normal for me because my body has
yeah,
been getting adjusted since I was little. And so I understand that whole aspect of things, but so we have to be careful. Ask the body first,
okay,
do you want this and that, or do you just want this? Because
okay.
sometimes we have to work the body up to being able to negotiate
Yeah.
movement.
So let's say you're with a client right now and you were asked that question. Do you ask and then you just ask them the question and then you just listen for the answer in your mind? Or I know some holistic people ask the question to the client and then they do muscle testing and they
Yeah,
find out if it's weak. So maybe muscle testing is a good way to show the client whether they're saying yes or no.
exactly. And you can kind of hear the tone in somebody's voice, like when he says, "Let me do this for you," and I went, "Well, yeah,"
Okay.
and there's that moment
Yeah.
where, a truth is said in a tone or
Okay.
in a flow, and sometimes, now there's sometimes where somebody's not ready for it either, and then that you go, well, then let's do that next time,
Yeah. Okay.
so
That's
that they
good
kind of
advice.
get that because sometimes
Good
we
advice.
have up these walls that help us not be healed all the way, and
Yeah.
so sometimes knocking on the door first can allow that in, and there's another way life is mirroring for us, is that our bodies talk, and then if we're not able to heal, and like I was talking to somebody today about how that sometimes, that right now, a lot of us, I'm witnessing this, not in judgment about it, but are having a struggle feeling success, you know, and then they
Yeah.
sabotage themselves unconsciously, subconsciously, unknowingly, that little whisper back here that, we think that we're doing really good.
Yeah.
That sometimes when we're getting things really good and it's feeling really good, there's a part of us, and it could be 0.00000000001%, that's, and it sabotages us. It throws us into scarcity. I can't have that. Why am I
Mm-hmm.
doing that? And it's like, so then we started having our sabotages be either our body or, something like that. And sometimes sabotages start up a couple years before, when we're having kind of a time in life where, it's like maybe before we met the person that we wanted to fall in love with, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be when, we weren't sure if we wanted an animal, and, then the best animal came to us. And after a little while, something happens to that animal because we weren't really ready to receive the undeniable love that they have, the unconditional love that they have.
That's
So
interesting.
we have to be careful right now and look at how life is mirroring for us. Are we
Yeah. So,
staying in scarcity? Are we staying in these old patterns? Because, oh my gosh, the world is we have all these planets in retrograde right now. And then we have Mercury on top of it about communication. So communication with self. And that's the thing is that I'm even checking in, with my cat and dog missing now. Where am I sitting in scarcity? Because my husband is mirroring scarcity,
yeah.
right? And through language and through actions, little actions, and then my cat is disappearing. So was I worthy of receiving the cat fully? Because I can tell you right now, with him being gone, as much as I want him back, so want him back, but I've been having to close doors upstairs, right? Because I didn't want him in certain rooms. And so with that, now I can have that open, which is actually helping the energy to flow, because
Oh.
my house is in a big shift and change. I'm taking off wallpaper out of my front room. And so something that's been in my front room since before I owned the house over 30 years ago is
Mm-hmm.
getting taken down. So there's a lot of energy movement, and it's wise to have the doors open. And so there's this interaction that actually, I'm not saying that I'm grateful that he's gone. Oh God, I want him back. But it's like looking at the coin to see what the benefit is at this minute in time, so
Right.
that, because that's what's mirroring for me right now, right? Where I'm looking at what's mirroring. And so
Yeah.
maybe he chose to be gone so that I can open up all the doors, let the energy flow, let things move through, so that healing can happen in these wonderful understandings.
Yeah. That's for sure. So let's talk now about what do you do when you feel that the universe is, in a sense, pulled the rug out from underneath you in many parts of your life, and you feel like you're floundering. And of course, the first emotion to kind of come up, mostly for most people, I think, is fear. You know, and
De-
then
that
yeah,
depressed feeling, that depressed
yeah,
moment.
and me too. I always have this sense in my mind when we talk about retrogrades and all this, and everybody goes, "Whoa, look out now! All the planets are aligned this way. That means all kinds of craziness is going on." I did learn through my spiritual walk that when that happens, instead of running away and hiding under a blanket from it, that the best way to get through it is to walk right into it, in a sense. In
Mhm.
other words, the tornado's coming, is run into the tornado, because usually what's happening is you find when all this retrograde changes and everything is done, you look around and you go, wow, that's better. Oh, I'm better. That's better. But sure was difficult going through it. But yeah, I'm so glad that all these changes happened. You know, um, I used to have dreams, and in the dream, a tornado would be coming, and in the dream, all night long, I'm running, I'm hiding. Everywhere I go, the tornado seems to follow me. I can't get away from it, and I'm just like cowering in fear. And then when I took a dream class, and they taught us how to kind of learn to be aware in your dreams, to have awaking or like awake dreams. And in the dream, as that was happening, when I realized that the tornado was a representation that spirit was trying to come in and break all the old molds up so that the new molds, the new and better molds, could be formed. And once I realized that, I'd start to have a tornado in the dream, and it felt so good because here it comes, and I see it coming, and I just ran right into the middle of it. And as it's doing it, I can just feel myself, in a sense, being ripped apart, and I'm smiling about it because I know that what it's doing is it's uprooting my old consciousness. It's getting rid
Mhm.
of the old, and now I can start from anew. And ever since then, I've never had a tornado dream again. I mean, it's been like, well, I guess once I accepted that. So that kind of helps me. Like there's a saying, and I forget what it is, but the only way to resolve a problem is through the problem. You know.
And that's the way. It's like grief. The only way you can get through grief is to walk through it. The only way you
Correct.
can get through
Yes.
anger is to walk through it. And that's one thing that even
Yeah.
when, because I used to, and that's like, so you hear my language. I used to have where my shoulders were really painful, really,
Mm-hmm.
really painful. And, that they've really, in the past, had scenarios. And one thing that I found that when I was in that much pain, I mean, my husband said that, Natasha, I'm watching your shoulder blades spasm. I mean, it's bing, bing, bing,
Mm.
bing. I mean, I would be in, I mean, I couldn't even move pulling up my pants was like a story, how I really didn't want to move because I would be in pain for the next 10 minutes, extreme pain. But I found that the wall of pain, half the time, the pain was what was keeping me. And once I learned to walk through the pain, walk through that moment, I found that that I was able to go to the other side of it. It didn't make it pain any less, but I took the fear out of that wall.
Yeah.
I took the fear out and that holding of myself. I don't want to move. It's like, well, I'm going to move anyways. I'm going to hurt.
Yeah.
And that's why I finally, after 20 years, are doing my wallpaper, because my arms are saying, we can do it this year.
Yeah. Here's a physical example of how removing the fear can help you heal. Um, they found out that when people would use before they had to go into a real difficult surgery,
Mm-hmm.
when they did it in hypnosis, they found out that they healed like 35% quicker. There was less anesthesia that was needed to get them to where they needed to go. It was just all around better. But what the hypnotherapist did in this case, he said, when he had him hypnosis, he talked to the subconscious and he says, look, your normal subconscious, when it feels a knife going into your body, it's like you're being in a knife fight and you're fighting it off, pushing it away, trying to get away from the knife. Okay. So the
Mm-hmm.
natural subconscious thing is, if it feels a knife cutting your body, is to run, to scream, to whatever. And so it tightens up the body, intense. So he talked to the subconscious and he says, hey, look, bub, this is a friend that's coming in here to do this. This is a good thing. So when you feel that knife coming in there, just welcome it, because it's going to heal you. It's going to make you better.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, you made friends. The subconscious, when the surgeon came, the body was more relaxed, and that's why they healed 35% faster. Because there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a rip and a tear. It was just a cut, and the body could heal it. So that's kind of like what we can do emotion wise. I give the clients I've had to come to me that have pain all the time. Like I had a man one time, he was in a rainstorm in a stop sign, and a big tree fell on the car, smashed his whole spine and everything. Luckily he lived, but he was in constant pain. So the only thing he could do is do marijuana, and that really helped with the pain some. So I did a session for him, and um, what I taught him to do is to not fear this pain, but to make friends with the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I had him picture that he feels the pain coming up. And so in his mind, he would go, whoa, pain's at the front door. Oh my God, pain's at the front door. It's going to be in my house. And I said, instead of running in the other room and hiding in a closet, I says, go to the door. I said, put a face to the pain, make it a man or an animal or something. but look at the pain and say, "Hey, pain, I see you've come to visit me. Oh boy, it's gonna hurt, isn't it?" I says, "But I know you're doing your job, and that's okay. But come on in. Let me make you some cookies or something, and just that little shift of the way you looked at pain instead of running, hiding, just kind of face it, acknowledge it. It's gonna hurt a little bit, but it's okay. Here's some cookies, you know." And I can't. The guy for months afterwards, he says, "Okay, I could feel the pain coming on." He says that pain guy that comes sees me all the time. We're like best buddies now. We talk about stuff. He comes in, we have some coffee, and we talk about stuff. And he says while he's doing that, he says my pain is way less. He says I get through that episode. He says it works like magic, and I'm laughing. He says because it's how we when we shift our
Our
mind and how we
perception,
look
yeah.
at things, we can do miracles, that way.
Well, and that's the thing. Then again, is that it's walking to it and walking through it, and half of life is standing at the door, going, walk through it. And I love what Paula said. Paula said, she says, I have had so many
Oh yeah.
rugs pulled out from underneath me the last 2 years. I figured out it's easier to dance on a smooth floor. LOL. I love that. I love that. Thank you, Paula.
Oh,
That was
Paula, thanks
perfect.
for sharing that. That's exactly what we're talking about,
It,
but
and that's the thing is like, even though I'm really sad about Cleo, I just was talking to a friend on, she's intuitive. But she says she can't even feel where Cleo is. Right. That,
oh boy.
and so there's something going on there that she's cloaked, and she's a spiritual being. So, but it's a moment where, it's like, I'm conscious about it, but I'm trying to stay out of worry. I'm
Okay.
really stay out of scarcity. I'm really trying to stay out of what's going to happen. Is she going to come? It's like all that angst and fear. I just can't be there because that's not going to
Yeah.
help the healing to happen or the moment to happen or it's like, and it's not to say that I'm not feeling it, but it's like
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily trying to let it control me. We have to be partners in life. And that's one thing that I learned being in pain
Yeah.
and having life mirror things for me is who's controlling who.
Now here's what's interesting, Natasha. Think about this. Okay, I'll be off in a few minutes here. It'll be a month before I'm on your show again. We'll be talking in a month from now. And just think in your mind about, what you're going to be telling me about this cat saga, and how you've handled it and what you've learned. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to hear about it. But whatever it is, you're a beautiful soul, and I know whatever it is, it's going to be okay. Whatever the outcome is, uh, whatever feelings you're having or emotions or something, it's going to be okay because you know that this is something beyond your control. You're letting the universe kind of do its thing, and
The cat
see.
distribution system is at play here, and I can't
Yeah,
control that,
yeah,
because I know for me intuitively, I knew if my cat went outside, something was going to happen. I just knew it.
yeah,
There's something in me that just didn't want to. I mean, and he started doing something in the house that wasn't acceptable for my husband and not for me either.
yeah,
And then but I can see why he was doing it now because we needed to start working on the front room, right?
yeah. Look what's happened. Yeah,
Yeah, so with that, working on the front room. And so my husband ended up bringing him outside, and it was like, so Rocky was in control of his life. My husband was in control of what was happening. I was not.
yeah,
The bigger picture was at play here. And I had to, even though I saw something, I had to trust and surrender to it. And then as I was talking to my neighbor the other day, she says, well, I did see Rocky on the 4th walking with a pregnant cat. He's fixed.
oh,
He's fixed. He's like 18 months old. He'll be
okay,
2 in if a coyote doesn't get him. That that he's going to be 2 in October. That he was walking with a cat that seemed to be pregnant. Well, maybe she needed him.
right, yeah,
Maybe she needed his grace. Maybe she needed his love. Maybe she needed his support. Maybe there's something about the kittens that she's going to have that he needed to have a conversation with them.
yeah,
I don't know, but I know for me that when I heard her say that, I'm like going, Well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because he's a spiritual cat. He's been
yeah.
my spiritual cat. He's been showing me some spiritual evolution stuff. So,
Well, yeah,
you know,
what's so beautiful, the fact that you and I have been taught these skills where we can help others to actually sometimes, like your friend was telling you, she was giving you an idea of maybe a bigger picture, other possibilities and things. And what you do when you have clients, hang on a second, some spam call. Okay, got rid of it. Okay, what we try to do is try to help people tune in and help them to try to see things from a bigger canvas. And when people do that, it's so much easier to get through their problems because they realize, oh, this is why. This is why it's happening. Or even if they don't quite understand, they realize there is a bigger picture here and they accept that even if
might be getting another call. And that is true. And um, we never know the bigger picture why. We really don't. We don't know why we go through things. Now, we might get a different perspective after a couple of years, weeks, months, whatever it is. And thank you, Paula. Check in with Mary. You know what I'm going to do probably is I'm going to record myself talking with Mary and just channel her so that I can just get out of the way because I know my emotions are blocking me a little bit. So, you speak about it as I'm typing it. LOL. I love that. So thank you very much, Paula, for saying that, because I think that I've been thinking about doing that anyways, and you're just the confirmation. So Regan is forced is frozen right now, and so with that, yep, there he goes. And so coming into this, that we're all in the midst of some big shifts and changes. We've got these planets right now that are helping us. The birth to rebirth process. We've got things that are happening. Another planet is in the sign that it's not been in since World War II, and the what's the other one? Back in the Civil War. We've got another planet that's reviewing things that happened 30 years ago, which actually was my first Saturn return. Was 30 years ago, right? So I'm going mirroring a lot of things that happened in my first Saturn return, working on them in my second Saturn return, which Saturn returns are basically where you're taking an evolution or a review of yourself and it really is a time when you almost dump over garbage cans and you take a look at your life, and it's a moment where life is happening and life is going forward. And we go into these moments where we're in doing this. And so I knew going into this year, once I heard it was my second Saturn return, and it was a 9 personal year for me, and it's a 9 personal or universal year of 2025 equals 9. And then going into the year of the snake, and understanding that the snake, when it's the year of the snake, the snake doesn't always can see things clearly, and so I found myself being blinded by shedding my skin sometimes. And so going into this, that, when we are in going forward in who we are and what we're doing, that it is about ask the questions why. Now, some of the skills of doing this is that, right now I'm constantly saying the mantras. I'm trusting, I'm surrendering, I'm accepting, I'm trusting, I'm surrendering, and I'm accepting. Show me the way, find my way, let me see the way, let me know more, let me go forward, let me do what I need to do so I can be where I'm at. And when we're going into this, that it's a moment of appreciation and support. And I'm going to tell Regan, because we got the next couple minutes here, that we are where we're at and where we're supposed to be. And oh gosh, you've been using the mantra, I'm asking for divine healing on this a lot lately. And because it is time for us to be stirred up and doing what we're doing. And I'm hoping and praying that everybody knows that they're loved. I'm hoping and praying that everybody knows that they are amazing. And that, and I was having a session with a client yesterday, and Merlin popped in. And Merlin is very magical, and he didn't have an easy life. He had to learn a lot of his magic through struggle and perseverance. And kind of like for me, when I had an entity that took me over, I had to use the elements, and now I use the elements in a different way. And so sometimes life mirrors things for you so that you can really see how to use your life and your tools differently. We all have tools. We're stronger than we think we are. And so be the strength that you are, be the understanding that you are, because, sometimes, feel those emotions, feel the struggle, feel the understanding. But do they have to control you? Do they have to be overpowering? Yes, in a moment they do, right? In a moment our emotions sometimes have to help us struggle, but we don't have to stay in that struggle. We don't have to stay in that struggle. And Regan, thank you for coming back. We have the next couple
Yeah,
minutes here.
yeah. I don't know what happened there. I think we lost the whole signal there for just a minute. And I'm going to pull over right up here for a second. Hang on.
Because I know you got to get going too, but
Yeah, that's okay. But I didn't want to just leave abruptly that way.
no,
So
you're good.
who
But
do we
that's
have
one
on
thing
right
that I
now?
want people to know, that Merlin, as I pull a Merlin card,
Oh
that
yeah,
Merlin, let magic be in your life, even though life is pulling the rug out from underneath you. Learn to dance. I love what Paula said. Learn to dance on the harder floors, because
yes,
it is a moment where because like on the other side of the card is a mystery. Life is a mystery. We don't know why we're going through things. We can just get a perspective, we can get an understanding, we can find a compassion for what we're going through. And don't be afraid to walk through the door, because many times things are happening to help us get shoved through the door, right?
yeah,
Get
yes,
shoved
for
through that
sure.
moment, and every time we walk through the door, it's not as scary as what we thought it was going to be.
No, I've always found when I've been brave enough to turn around and face the fear that's chasing me, that it's been okay. It just kind of disappears, or it's just a friendly man smiling at me, trying to
Mhm.
wake me up or get my attention for something. There's always
Last
that.
one time I was having dreams of being chased, and I
Yeah.
turned around and I stopped and I said, "Who are you?" And it was a version of myself.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a common thing in dreams when you're being chased. A lot of times it's because you're running away from something that you need to face, and you
Mhm.
haven't, and that when you wake up in the dream, or if you don't wake up in the dream and you just wake up and you think, oh my gosh, that was something that was chasing me, then you start thinking about in your life, what am I running away from here? Okay, maybe I need to look at my life, and I need to decide to kind of, pull myself up by the bootstraps and look at this thing, what it is.
Mhm.
Much easier said than done. I know after I've turned around and done all that, it seems like, well, that was easy. But before, oh boy,
I
you
know,
know,
and things don't
seemed
happen until you're
impossible.
ready to do them. Things
It's
you
right.
can't do things until you're ready to do them. But there is a time where sometimes you have to trust, surrender, and accept. Sometimes you have to persevere. Sometimes you have to, fake it till you make it. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just have to find your tools, because we all have them, that we
Yeah.
can negotiate.
Yeah. Well, let me tell people how to find me before I have to take off here, because either both you and I mean, we're perfectly imperfect, helping other perfectly imperfect people. Let's just all work together in getting through these trials and things. But try to dance on the floor rather than the rug, she said, and
Hmm.
if we can all kind of help each other do that, I think life can be a lot more joyful and happy and interesting for sure. People can reach me at visittheafterlife.com. I'm doing a lot of sessions online lately, both regular hypnotherapy sessions and life between life sessions where I help clients experience the afterlife. There's all kinds of videos on there that explain everything and what you do. And then I know with your website that you got all redone and everything, it's beautiful now. And that's under
Hmm.
intuitiveclarifications.com, right?
It
Hmm.
is. It is. Intuitiveclarifications.com. And, we're all going through something. And so sometimes I'm even feeling like I need to get a reading done lately,
Yeah.
from
Hmm.
somebody who doesn't really know me, or doing something. So
Yeah.
remembering that we can't do life alone. We just can't. We need to, Paula, thank you for being there with me, earlier, that I was just able to be vulnerable for
Yeah.
that moment. And I stopped making a to-do list that is unattainable and just put one thing on my list: keep moving forward.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, just and actually, I was with a man in some training about a month ago, and he's been teaching people uh, that want to be successful, and he tells them, he says, look, you've all been, you make your yearly goals, and you say, I want to make $5 million by the end of the year. He says, forget that. He says, put down something that's reasonable. He says,
Exactly.
even underdo it, because even if you say, oh, I want to make $50,000 this year. He said that's a reasonable, attainable goal. You take the pressure off you, and he says you'll be surprised at how many times you'll go way over what that goal was. Because
Exactly.
you were letting the universe come and decide for you, taking all the stress away, taking all that, like, trying to be perfect stuff, and just doing your job at the best you can do, and allowing whatever you make to make. And then three guys got up that were billionaires because they tried that process, and they said, I work less, I work smarter, I have time with my family, and I'm making 10 times as much money than when I was grinding and pushing against the door rather than letting the door open. And that's what he did for Patty. He's been coaching her for 20 years, and she's like way up there now, because she's just allowing the universe. I can't believe it. She's just sitting around the house, and people just call, oh yeah, yeah, and all of a sudden she makes $30,000 or $40,000, and just she goes, gosh, I don't have anything to do. Someone calls, boom, and I don't know. It's just I'm just watching her, and my jaw drops, because such a she's manifesting in such a way that just allows the universe to give her everything she needs. She has a saying when she wakes up. Maybe this will help some people. It's like, boy, how things always go my way. And even when they're not going my way, they're going my way. you know?
Exactly. And that's the way. It's the frequency that you're on, and it's the frequency that you're
Yeah.
doing. And I know, though, observing your loving wife, that she has done a lot. She's done a lot on her path. And so now she's reaping
Yeah.
the rewards of her past
She
walk.
is.
And
Yeah.
so I don't want to give people the wrong idea, because, and I had my battery was going down, so I had to plug in my phone or my
Yeah.
computer. But it's like, so going into this, be in the frequency. And I know for me, I'm shifting up my frequency, and that might be why my cat and my dog are disappearing, because my frequency is changing up, and
Yeah.
it's a moment. And I really feel like dimensional walks or dimensional things are happening right now. So time is
Yeah.
changing, dimensions are changing, reality is changing, and that means our animals are caught between the rock, here and
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I know
Yeah.
you need to get somewhere, and I know that
Yeah. I gotta
life
go. Well, let's all run into the tornado together, holding hands, and just
because the
see
center
where
of
we
the
land.
tornado is always calm.
Yes, right. A master once told me, he says, you can tell when you're spiritually advancing, when you can feel like you're in the middle of a tornado and you're calm as a cucumber, you know, that way. And that's when you know that, okay, you're handling things okay. So I will
Mhm.
see you next month. Okay. I look forward to it, as I always, Natasha.
Yes,
And
and you
put
can
some
reach
good thoughts out
Regan.
there for
What's
Connie.
that?
Connie's having surgery tomorrow. It's just a woman thing, but it's, anytime people go under the knife, there's always crazy things can happen. So she's doing fine. She's all ready. She said no problem. And I'm going to be there for her all day tomorrow. But if you think of her or something, just send her some friendly vibes. Okay.
I will. I will. I will. I will. I
Okay.
will. I hope and pray that she'll be. Let the angels be the hands on the knife.
Yes. There we go. Yeah, it'll be good.
That's
It'll
my
be good.
contribution. And I wanted to say something. My dad did that when he went in for colon cancer, and
Yeah.
and the doctor came out saying he was one of the patients that bled the least, because he did that work. He really accepted the knife. He really accepted the healing. He respected everything was happening. And so his tissue and blood tissue and his skin was ready for that moment.
You know what? I'll do a little light hypnosis for her tonight. And I'm just going to have her envision, that an angel's standing there making the cuts, and it's all done very good and light, and the angels are around her when it's happening. And I'm sure she'll benefit from that, and it'll help me to know that I'm doing what I can do to help her. So that'll be good.
Well,
Thank you for saying
you're
that.
always a gift. So thank you everybody for being here. You can reach Regan at visittheafterlife.com. He's amazing. And you can reach me at Natasha Venter Intuitive Clarifications.com. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Regan, for being here.
See you again.
And I will see you on the other side.
All right. All right. Bye.
Bye now. Bye, everybody. Thank you for being here. And please like, share. If you know of anybody who could have this, please appreciate all the likes and the shares. And please remember that no matter what you're going through, you are loved. You are so loved. Thank you for putting up with us being in life today, and may blessings be with you. Thank you, everybody.